Hey, everybody. Chris Peters here, and this is Called Up, the Prospects podcast. On joining me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Cam Robinson. Cam, how the heck are you?
I'm doing well, buddy. School's about to start. We're going to get the kids out of the house, get focused during daytime hours. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it is going to be good. It's going to be great, actually, because my kids are already in school, and that is a good thing for us. So, hockey tryouts are coming. We got all the other stuff that is happening. Man, I am like, yeah, it just there's a buzz in the air right now, and actually, it's a little cooler out here in the Midwest right now, so we're getting a little bit of that fall feel, and yeah, so. But there's been a lot of things happening because the hockey season's right around the corner. We are now weeks away. We are not. It's not a month. It's not even 3 weeks. It's about 2.5 weeks to the start of the junior hockey season. We got USHL Fall Classic. We've got the OHL, which we're going to talk about in a second, the QMJHL, the WHL. They're all starting. And so that's getting really exciting. That means the draft season is really kicking into high gear. That means a lot of these prospects are going. We've got prospect camps coming up, rookie tournaments, all of those things. We'll talk a little bit about that. So we're going to focus on a lot of different things today, including, the top 100 that you guys released over at Elite Prospects, the affiliated prospects. That's a great way to kick off the season every single year, kind of taking a look back at the prospects that are there. We're also going to talk about one of the craziest NCAA eligibility stories that I have ever seen, and it is the new era. And if you are a Bemidji State fan, you are going to get so much airtime on this podcast because we can't wait to talk about it. So that is going to be a lot of fun for us to kind of get into. But before we do that, Cam, I know you saw it. I know I saw it because we posted it. Huge news in the FloHockey world. The Ontario Hockey League is here on FloHockey. Let's play the video that was shared around, and we will talk about this for a few minutes as well. So let's roll that tape.
Here's a chance. They score! Oh, my goodness gracious! They score! What a beauty there! One-time shot. He scores! Absolute credit. Johnson scores! Floats it up, shot. Right through line, he scores!
Sick.
Well, for those of you that are listening and not watching, that was a lot of OHL highlights, and now FloHockey is the home of the OHL. Cam, I mean, it is such an important league for what we do in the prospect world. Now yet another league under the Flo banner. They joined the QMJHL, the USHL, BCHL, the CJHL leagues, including like the OJ, the Alberta League, a lot of those kinds of places. Just so many junior hockey leagues, dozens, and now to have the OHL, I mean, it's going to be a great year for it as well. A lot of NHL draft prospects to watch and a lot of drafted prospects returning to the league, right?
Oh, man. It's a crown jewel. That's huge. I had wondered when you were teasing me there last week, wouldn't give me the dirt on it either. I'm like, it's not going to be the dub. Could it be the O? And that's a big pull.
Yeah, so really excited. This has been, over the last 12 months for Flo. It's adding the AHL from AHL TV coming over to FloHockey, adding the QMJHL earlier in the summer, and then, the work they've done to bring the OHL to FloHockey. It's a 7-year deal, both for the Q and for the O. So it's a long-term agreement. You're going to see a lot more content surrounding both of those leagues on FloHockey. So we are really excited to bring that to you throughout the year. Obviously on this podcast, that doesn't really change anything because we've already been talking about all this stuff, Cam. So the only thing is now we'll probably have more highlights that we can share during the course of through the course of a podcast. Maybe we'll do some video breakdowns here for our video audience as well. But obviously, as a prospect junkie, super excited. There is no place on the planet right now that has as many NHL prospects on one streaming platform as FloHockey. So really pumped to have that. And that's why, hey, Called Up the Prospects podcast, all the more important as we move forward. And so without tooting our own horns too much more, we're going to talk actually about the Elite Prospects Top 100 affiliated rankings. And so of course, Cam works for Elite Prospects, a whole team over there. You guys have a bunch of player evaluators and writers and people that are going to put this list together. And this is the time of year when all these lists come out. It's really exciting to kind of see where everything goes. All the lists are going to look different. There's going to be a few things here and there. But Cam, why don't you go ahead and just at least tell us a little bit about the process of creating such a list and kind of, some of the criteria that you also use to make sure that you're making the list uniform, because I know that there are a lot of prospect lists that have different criteria in terms of who's eligible and all those other things.
Yeah. So for this one, it's we let the NHL decide. And so if you're Calder eligible, you're eligible for this list. Obviously, you need to be affiliated, so you need to be drafted or signed if you were undrafted. We focus on the projected value in the NHL. So, if you put up 130 points in junior, but we don't expect that to transfer over to the NHL, that's obviously going to impact you versus someone who could put up 35 points in the NHL, in the OHL, and maybe we project them to be higher. Another thing too is like recently drafted players from like 2025. We're going to stick with what our list, what we came up with as a team just a couple of months ago. That's not going to shift over the summer. So some of those, you're going to see some of those players where you're going to be like, that guy seems a lot lower who just went third overall, but it's based on our criteria, our list. And then obviously those, most people are probably used to our grading scale now. We use a 1 to 9 scale to represent, skating, passing, puck handling, hockey sense, physicality, your shot, like all those things. We give you a grade 1 through 9. I'm not sure we've ever given out a 9. I think we've given out several 8s, but a 9 would be like damn near perfect, right? And there aren't too many of those out there. So a 9 would be you projected as being like a top 3 to 5 player in the league. So it's like it's a very, very high bar to clear. So we did it, and we primarily focus on players that are in their draft eligible season or before that. And so our scouting team, like, they put in so much effort to go back and now spend the summer watching tape on D+1, D+2, D+3 players, going back and really, instead of being at the beach or at the river, they're watching guys in the AHL or in college hockey that are 20 years old, 21 years old, and or in Europe and things like that. So the amount of work that went into this from our scouting team is massive. It's a big undertaking. I'm sure people are going to be accusing us of hating their favorite player and their favorite team, and that's absolutely correct. We do.
Yep.
Specifically,
absolutely.
you. I'm talking to you over there.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we try to do our best, and I think the list is it's been pretty well received so far.
Yeah, well, let's, we don't want to give away the entire list, but we do want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we saw at the top of the list. And of course, you can go over to eliteprospects.com and check out this list in its entirety and see the work that went into it. And the top 5 on this list, I'm going to run through it quick, but we're going to circle back to number 1 relatively quickly here as well, because I want to talk about some of the tool grades for the number 1 player, since we just had that little explainer from Cam Robinson here. But number 1 on the list, Ivan Demidov of the Montreal Canadiens. Number 2, Matthew Schaefer, the most recent number 1 overall pick. Number 3, Michael Misa. Number 4, Porter Martone. Number 5, Zane Parekh. So you've got Matthew Schaefer from the Islanders, Misa from the Sharks, Martone from the Flyers, and Parekh from the Flames. So that's the top 5. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the surprises for each of us on the list. But I want to circle back to number 1, because obviously this is a guy that I think is going to come into this season with incredible expectations thrust upon him. He had a great debut last year, really showed what he can ultimately be capable of at this level. But you just talked about the tool grades, grading from 1 to 9. Ivan Demidov comes in with an 8 on passing, an 8.5 on handling, and an 8.5 on sense. So you guys have gone like really bullish on some of those tools there. I think, the hockey sense one is always, if you can get it at that level, we're talking like genius level kind of player at that point. Talk to me a little bit about the process and kind of where you landed in some of these discussions that as you put together the list with the group, and how Ivan Demidov ended up with. I mean, that is some lofty praise for a player that certainly is, been pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's a player that obviously we've been very, very high on going back pre-draft as well too. But basically his season last year really solidified the belief that this is a player that could potentially be in that, arguably in a top 10, top 15 player in the league. Now we're not looking at that being next year, but at the peak of his career. But with that hockey sense, that drives everything, right? The skating with Demidov is just fine. It's about league average. That's where he has a 5.0 rating, which is what we call league average. The shot is a 6, so it's above average at a top 6 option. But his passing, his handling, his sense are all elite tools. And if you can have those three together, handling the puck, distributing the puck, and then the sense on where to go, how to read the plays, all those things, you can mitigate being, only 6 foot tall or being just an average skater, and that can push you up into being a triple digit producer. So for the most part, a consensus, Matthew Schaefer gave it a good run too, to get up into that number 1 spot because he is such a gifted player as well too. But just how Demidov produced at the KHL level, how he acclimated himself in the short little time in the NHL with all eyes on him, with, teams were gearing up. They knew he was coming. They wanted to put this kid, in the blender a little bit too. And the way that he handled himself there too, is that the sky's the limit, right? And Montreal, they've getting him at where they did. That's going to look like a steal for a lot of years.
Yeah, I mean, getting him where they did and as soon as they got him too, the fact that he was able to come over quicker and, was able to kind of get everything squared away, and that he didn't have some of the hangups that, some of the teams were concerned about with Michkov in terms of, the long-term contract and the other things. And I think when you look at Montreal and they passed, got criticized for passing on Michkov and obviously that was a guy that was a top tier rookie last season in the NHL. But the fact that you come out of the next draft with Demidov, that's where it really starts to say, oh, well, okay. And David Reinbacher, ends up favorably on this list as well, who was the player that was selected ahead of Michkov. But, to land a player of Demidov's quality at, in a top 5 pick, as opposed to having to spend a first on that player, is really intriguing. So we will watch this with great interest starting next season, because Demidov is one of the great young players in the game that now has gotten that initial taste of NHL hockey, and how that sets him up for next season is going to be really interesting to look at. I know this is one of the ones that I wanted to talk about too, because when you look at lists like this too, I do think that there can be occasions where sometimes the most recent draftees get a little maybe
bump
elevated, because we've got, after Demidov, you've got 3 picks from the recent draft as the next tier, the next group of prospects from 2 to 4. Obviously I think Schaefer, recent number 1, that's where you would kind of expect him to be. Misa, if it was as close as a lot of people thought it was, then that's where you expect him to be. But one guy that surprised me, and I think may have even surprised you based on our conversations that we've had about the player, is Porter Martone, who comes in at number 4. Now, Martone going to Michigan State this year, played for the Brampton Steelheads last season, has a lot of really intriguing tools, but he jumps ahead of, recently drafted players, guys that were drafted a few years before, different positions, different centers. Ultimately, what'd you think of where Martone landed, and kind of what do we take away from that?
Yeah, as a group, EP very, very high on Porter Martone. Super high on his hockey sense. Super high on his passing ability. He's got the good shot as well, and then the uniqueness of that frame with that skill set too, right? Like I'd compared him to Todd Bertuzzi throughout the year. Is that he's got such great vision and such great handles, but not a traditional power forward. But if he can unlock some of that aggression that he flashes, then he could be a unique asset that we don't see too often. And so that's that projection. And so the group believes that that's the player he will develop into. And if he can, I'm on board with where he is on this list. Now, you look at him where he was just drafted, 6th overall, right? And all of a sudden he's 4th on this list amongst all the recently drafted players. So for some people that will be a little rich. Flyers fans are going to be just, celebrating in the background there too. But yeah, I think that one lends itself to projection and belief in the tools in the mind, But we could be looking at this list next year and he could be outside the top 10 if his season at Michigan State doesn't go as expected, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch kind of there. I think that sticking with the top 5 too, and I think with Martone, it's interesting. And to your point in terms of the grade tool, getting 8s on passing and sense for you guys, that's when you have traits at that high of a level. You're talking about a player that should have some top line, impactful potential. He's going to be interesting to watch because I agree. I think that the college game is probably a bit more physical than maybe some people realize, in terms of, obviously they play with the full face cages, which I think some people kind of scoff at, and I understand it because but it also does kind of create some of these really intense battles along the boards, intense battles in the open ice hitting is pretty common. There's a lot of stuff there that you're going to see that maybe what might have upped the intensity level a little bit. And so we'll see if that, does Porter rise to that occasion, because he does flash those opportunities. I'm going to go with one too, to me. So the number 2 defenseman on your list is Zane Parekh. So Zane Parekh comes in at number 5. He had 107 points. Obviously impressive. A lot of things that he can do. He did get into an NHL game. We started to see a little bit of that. So he's ahead of Zeev Buium, who comes in at 7. You've got, Artem Levshinov, who went 2nd overall that year at 10. So there's a lot of Simashev. There's a lot of different guys that are kind of in that mode. I know you've always been pretty darn high on Zane. Fifth on this list is, to me, that was the one where I was like, "Woo, okay, all right." So please explain.
Bet big on skill. Bet big on skill. And this kid has a lot of skill. He has first power play, number 1 power play quarterback written all over him. Someone who can, some of the physical side of his game, some of the, I wouldn't say that he's poor defensively, but he can be porous defensively at times. I think all of that can be cleaned up to be an average level at the NHL, but you can't teach what he can do with the puck on the blue line, right? You can't create that, the ability to handle and pass and move his feet across the board, like 7 or above. We've rated his skill outside of his physical ability. And his physical ability, he has a lot of snarl too. He's just not a generally overly physical player like in the corners or the net front. We think that his style maybe will take a minute to translate to the NHL as he kind of gets his feet wet in the league. And I'm expecting him to be in Calgary this year. But I think that once he gets his feet under him, and when he's 22 years old or something like that, it's, he could be among the top point getters on the blue line. And so, a player like Zeev Buium, who I absolutely love and who I think will be a better defender of play, just won't have that same type of ceiling to impact the game offensively. And there are just so few players that can impact the game offensively like Zane can.
Yeah. So, I mean, fair points all. I think, the thing with him is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see, like, does the defensive stuff, like, how does he build trust? How does he build kind of credibility within his own team to get the minutes? And that's going to be a process. And clearly Calgary are believers, like major believers in the player. They think he's going to make their team next year. And so that's going to be, a huge feather in his cap if he does do that. And then it's just going to be like, I think there will be growing pains as a part of that, but that's all part of what has to happen. And so, you look at right before we were on, our pal Dmitry Filipovich had a whole thing of Quinn Hughes, just an entire compilation of Quinn Hughes transitions. I was like, man, I could watch that video all day. I could watch, and what, the way that those offensive defensemen can impact the game, and the way that, so I can buy it. For me, it was rich, but that's the beauty of these prospect opinions. We have a lot of different things, and we'll talk about Parekh again a little bit later in the show when we get to our you have to pick one debate. But I want to move to a little bit further down the list, and talk a little bit about some of the other things. So where were some other surprises for you as somebody that kind of is involved in the process, and you kind of see where things land, and maybe, or maybe even anticipating what you think some of the surprises would be for the audience as well?
Yeah. So when I was filling this out, I was more thinking of what other people might be surprised with.
Okay.
So like a guy like Beckett Seneca, I should say, coming in at number 8 after, having a good season, but not an amazing season, right? James Hagen's at number 9, even. I think people might be like, of all the guys drafted, this guy just went 8th overall. Recent draft years, we've got guys that are, second overall picks that are behind him in Artem Levshinov. So I think people are probably looking at James Hagen's a little bit there too. A guy like Sam Rinzel coming in at 16 ahead of Alexander Nikishin, who, has been just a dominant force at the KHL level and now is already in the league. Brady Martin at 24. People are going to be like, 24 for Brady Martin, the 5th overall pick, behind all these guys that were drafted after or before him, or after him, I should say, and then, top prospects before. So there's a whole host of them. I'm sure you've got a couple yourself. Even a guy like Cole Reshny at 76. There isn't a hotter player in hockey probably in the last 6 months than Cole Reshny. You even carry that into the World Junior Summer Showcase. Like, it's just a rocket ship to the moon. And so, Flames fans are going to look at that, and some people that are, have witnessed his progression are going to be like, 76 for this kid. You could have had him at 26 and it probably would have been justifiable. So those are just a few names that I think people are going to be scratching their head a little bit about. And if we want, we can dig into them deeper.
Yeah, I want to dig in a little bit on Nikishin in particular, because that's a player that, to me, has traditionally been, and I get it. Like, I think some of it maybe is age related in terms of, where, hey, he's coming to the league later. The runway isn't as long for him as it is for some other players. But this guy has pretty much been the second best defenseman, or the best defenseman outside of the NHL in pro hockey, I would say. Where, you can make the arguments that when certain guys were in college, maybe they were better prospects, but like, in terms of what he is right now, Nikishin looks like a top 4 all day, everyday defenseman. And so to see, I think that what raises eyebrows is less about where a player lands on the list than it is about some of the people around him. And like you said, Sam Rinzel is one spot ahead of him. And if you would have told me that Sam Rinzel was going to be a top 20 prospect in hockey 2 years ago, I would have said no chance. But after last season, you can understand. And this is a guy that has ridden this trajectory. But again, when it comes to Nikishin, am I right in assuming that, like, the age was a big factor? Because to me, that's like the only thing against him. That's just me. But I guess to drill down further, you guys obviously had certain things like skating closer to average, handling closer to average, passing closer to average, league average. Not a lot of things that are, his best trait being his physicality. I just see a player with far better sense than I think he's been given credit for in this particular situation. But there's a lot to look forward to from him from a standpoint now. But am I right in saying the ceiling situation is maybe a little different for him?
Let's say that there is a somewhat of a divide among some people in the group with him too. And I'm on one side of the ledger too, where I think that I think similar as you do. I think that this is a really, maybe not a super high level defenseman, that he's not going to probably put up 50, 60 points, but I think he's going to chew up minutes. He has the size. I do think his IQ is better than rated there too. And, and just in comparison, you're right. Like Simishev at 11 versus him at 17, or, Dickinson, Rinzel, then him too. It's like, Dickinson probably does have a little bit of a higher upside with his tools. But if we're looking at a player, we're like, if you were asking me, who would you want for the next 5 years of those players, I'm taking him. I'm taking Nikishin because I know what I'm getting right away. I think he's going to translate very, very quickly. We saw him already in, get some games. I think he probably could have been higher in this list, or just had some of those players that were in front of him slip behind him and kind of rejig that order a little bit too. But again, it's, you're splitting hairs when you're talking about 15, 16, 17, right? It's going to be kind of group consensus at that point. And the value is betting big on skill too. So while, the Hockey Sense grades on Sam Dickinson can be debated highly as well too, his skating is very, very good, right? He took another step forward with his two-way game there last year. Sam Rinzel, like you mentioned, like holy smokes, like he's another one. Like I mentioned, Reshny, he's on a development rocket ship heading up, and a 6'4", 200-pound right shot defenseman who is trending that way, and just put up a great season in Minnesota. It's like, this could be a really, really interesting player when he becomes Nikishin's age too, right? So it's a lot of projection with these guys, and it's in a close crop of players, a grouping there. But yeah, I know there's going to be some Kane fans who are not pumped, because there's a lot of people that value this guy as probably a top 5 prospect in the league right now among affiliated guys, just because he is NHL ready right now to chew up top 4 minutes. And, it's hard to argue with.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think so there's I had a couple of other, quibbles, like we all do, right? Like when we look at each other's lists, we're like, I don't think so. The one thing that as I mentioned before, I think that a lot of the guys from the most recent draft class, I think there's too many of them too early in this list is what I would say. There's just, I didn't love last year's draft class. I've not made any secrets about that. When I see Berkeley Catton behind like 10 of them or 11 of them or 13 of them or however many it is, I don't know. I didn't actually count them all. But like he's 28th and I'm like, like that's a tough one for me, because I think he's a lot more dynamic than a lot of the players in this group. And if there's a focus and an emphasis on skill, that's where, like I see a player like him where I'm pretty surprised to see him, closer to the 30 range than the 15 range, in this list is what I would probably, the way that I probably say it. I know you're a big, you're a big Catton guy too, aren't you? Or do I have that wrong?
You do have that wrong. I'm not a huge Catton guy. I mean, I think he's a very, very skilled player, but I do wonder how it will translate. The way that he dominated junior and has dominated junior isn't necessarily super translatable to the NHL. I think that, kind of dropping the pace and really emphasizing his handles and his ability to create space between himself and the defenders is you don't get that luxury at the NHL, because they're so good at gapping up on you and you have so much back pressure coming from behind you. And so I am a little curious about him, but I can also understand where someone's like, you got Carter Barrett 20 and you got Berkeley Catton at 28. Like what's Carter Barrett? He's a 6 foot, 175 pound center who, good player, good shot, coming off an injury. It's like, probably on skill wise, where I just said you bet big on skill. That's why you got Zane Parekh at number 5, but then you're not betting big on skill on a kid like Berkeley Catton. So it's like, once you get to a certain level of this group, you're also, it's projection. So if you're going to bet big on a Zane Parekh, it's like, you shoot for the moon, you might land among the stars. You bet big on Berkeley Catton. It's like, if he doesn't break right, he might not be an NHLer, I guess, if things don't really go to his way too. Whereas a guy like Carter Barrett, it's like, he's going to have a role in the NHL with his playing style of being so physical and being a center. And, he's got the great shot. And so I do understand those things for sure. And how people will look at that and be like, it's a bit of a misnomer, is that they're saying they're going high on skill, but then they're letting these guys slip a little bit too. So it's not perfect. It's certainly not perfect. Right. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I think that's the thing, is you kind of have a lot of those different value adds. Yeah, you can bet a big on skill, but it's like, but Caden Lindstrom is still a big factor, is the size. Yeah. That's a big reason that his upside is where it is. So, I mean, you have that. I mean, I wasn't surprised to see him there, but also like, seeing Anton Frundell at 26th relative to the rest of the class. EP is they're well-known Frundell haters. They're well-known. It is.
Love the kid though. Love the kid.
Awesome. It's awesome.
He's a good kid.
Yeah,
He's a good kid.
Yeah, I think, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of where he ends up. I thought his shot grade was fairly low, but I mean, shot is also one of the least valuable things for me, in terms of like the overall package. But I think he has a really spectacular shot. But like, there's a lot of things like you're splitting hairs in a lot of these, and I don't think it was really like, you can't say, oh, you guys are nuts, you're crazy, you don't know what you're doing. Like this isn't how that works. That's not the kind of things that I would say, because I think it's completely fair. I mean, like, there's a lot of different ways to make these kinds of lists, and I had no, not a ton of other qualms. I did have like, I've been a very big time. I'm pretty high on Caleb Desnoyers to sort of see him behind so many players again from the last class was another thing where I was just like, I have a hard time with that, given the fact that I think that the style that he plays is so translatable to the NHL, and also just kind of a guy that could impact the game in so many different ways. Whereas, and he comes in at 19, even like behind Jackson Smith, who's a defenseman that I have some doubts about in terms of, the upside in being in this tier of these prospects within this class of these prospects that we have them in, that you guys had them in there. But I mean, beyond that, I mean, really, it's just like, these things are exciting. We're going to see where things go. These lists fluctuate so much year over year, and it should, because development is not a straight line, and players are not going to develop exactly on the path that they were drafted to. So I think there's a lot there to like about it. And so it's a fun exercise for us to have the conversation about it, because I'm sure that everybody's kind of looking at every list and having these internal debates with themselves. And so if we were able to have those debates on your behalf, or even conversations about it, then we're happy to do it. But the main reason that I wanted to talk about this today, though, Cam, is rookie tournament rosters are starting to come out. So we're going to have rookie tournaments here in the next little bit. We're going to talk about the rookie tournaments more and beyond belief. But it's the surest sign that hockey is just about here when you start seeing those rosters drop for the rookie camps. And that may or may not be a huge waste of time. But anyway, so we move on to our next topic. Unless we had it, do we want to beat that dead horse anymore? About
no, let's beat a new horse.
No. So go read the top 100 prospects on Elite Prospects, top 100 affiliated. Really fun to see that, and also visually very appealing, I must say. You guys have a really nice look to it. All right. Next up, Cam, this is probably the craziest NCAA story that I have seen, and was completely unaware to it until, and this is why, folks, it really helps to have local reporters who will ask the questions and also notice the things that those of us that are looking at these teams often from 30,000 feet would not have caught. And this is a huge credit to Bemidji Pioneer writer Jared Robardo, who saw the roster for Bemidji State men's hockey and saw that there was not one, but two players that have played AHL games, professional games in North America, on the roster. Not only are they on the roster, they cleared the NCAA eligibility, what used to be known as the clearinghouse. And so I'm gonna break this down first and just give you a little bit. And again, huge credit to Jared Robardo. You should go read the story of Bemidji Pioneer. He talked to Tom Serratori, who's one of the great characters of the game. And the two players are Connor McLennan, who played for the Winnipeg Ice. He was drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers in 2020, never signed. Went and played 7 AHL games with the Chicago Wolves after his WHL career was over, and an additional 2 with Norfolk, and then decided to go to U Sports. So he only ended up playing 9 professional games. That one didn't shock me. Like, I was like, okay, you can make the case that the player, was either, was able to, it didn't work out, and then he wanted to go use his WHL education package, which he did for 2 years or a year and a half, roughly. Now he's going to Bemidji State. So, okay. This was the one that really caught my attention, Cam. Hudson Thornton. He was on the NCAA track initially, but then decided to sign in the WHL, played in Prince George for 3 years.
Legend there.
Signed a pro. Yes. Signed a pro contract with, and played 50 games between the ECHL and the AHL. He played 1 AHL game with Hershey. He played 49 games between South Carolina Stingrays and the Orlando Solar Bears. And
all-time jerseys.
This is what Tom Serratori had to say about it. These guys went through the NCAA Eligibility Center and were cleared. Man, the landscape in college sports is crazy right now. We saw some in other sports that there were guys who played pro who were eligible to play in college again. Why not give it a whirl for us? It was a shot in the dark. And now you have 2 players with professional hockey experience on your roster. Now, I should say they will not be the first players with pro experience to play in college hockey. There have been players that have played games in the Allsvenskan or in European pro leagues that usually had to sit out a few games to regain
Tom
their
Verlander.
eligibility. Yeah, Tom Verlander had two games where he had to sit out. And so Cam, so I know, like, I've been in the NCAA space for years. Even in this new landscape, I did not think we would see this, because the language as it was that if you are paid over and above necessary expenses, you are deemed a professional and are not eligible. Last I checked, when you play in the ECHL, you are paid a salary which is not just for your expenses. So
not much more though.
So that is yeah. So here we are, Cam, in this crazy kind of thing. And to me, this opens up a whole can of worms, because one thing that you and I have talked about on here is this idea that maybe a player takes an ATO, goes to training camp, doesn't work out, goes and enrolls in school. We still don't have tons of clarity on that, but like, tell me your thoughts when you see this. And it's like, how are we even here at this point? I don't even know where we are right now.
I don't know where we are. I don't know where we're going, but I love it. I love like Hudson Thornton was like a personal favorite of mine. I know Daniel G loved him there, and he's in PG in Prince George too. So he saw him probably 4 dozen times over a couple of years, more probably. And he put up some good points there for the Cougars, and I'm surprised he wasn't a pick at one time there too. And so, to go play in the coast and then to get a chance now to go to school, who knows what his path is going to look like now. At the very least, he's going to get himself a nice education playing at Bemidji. It's going to be a good experience for him, set him off on a nice path, hopefully, for his future. Maybe it's in hockey, maybe it's in something else, but it's just going to add more depth, more talent into that league. And that's what I like to see. That's what I want. I'm so excited for the college hockey season this year. I'm so excited for where it's going. It's the freedom of choice for players has never been greater. And I am all about that. I want these kids to have the best opportunity to develop into the best players and people that they can become, and opening up these doors to get into college, even in your 20s. Connor McLennan too. That kid was a heck of a player in junior, right? Like he was a PPG or better most years. Like these are skilled players that are now, whatever, probably 20 in their early 20s. Now they get a chance to play some more hockey at a high level school. And who knows what that's going to break. Maybe they go play over in Europe or whatever it is. It's just more opportunities, better players in a better league. I'm all for it. I hope that we start to see guys that have, played a full season in the Allsvenskan, had 40 games in the SHL, played in the Liga, played in the Czech, right? Like, and now they're coming over too in their 20s, and we're just boosting up that league now. Some people will say like, oh, well, they're taking spots away from 18, 19-year-olds that are going to play. Okay, go play in the CHL, bud. You go play in the CHL when you're 18, 19, and then you go play college hockey at 2021. There's going to be opportunities for everybody, and there's going to be some high-level leagues that are going to be open if you're a good enough player. And so I love it. That story was crazy. It came out of the complete left field for me as well, but I'm definitely here for it.
Yeah, I am. I am too, and I think like basically, the stringence. This was the one thing where it's like when you see a player that played an entire professional season, that was where I was like, wait, really? Because we haven't seen that before. And I agree. I think this opens up a lot of things. And so the other thing to note is that in other sports throughout, and there have been, there's been a kind of a loosening of the rules here for sports like basketball and volleyball and some of these where for a lot of these European players, the structure that existed within their own communities and cities and countries was, this is the path. You play for your local club, then you go play for the pro, you move up the ranks. And really the only path for you to develop was through a professionalized system. And so now why not do that for American, Canadian, whoever else, players as well that have these opportunities. And also I think, we'll see if there's a correction or an overcorrection for this as we go forward. There's a lot of other things like legislation in terms of the amount of time people are going to get to play college and retain eligibility. I know on Flo College, our college platform, there is I believe a 58-year-old gentleman that is going to be playing Division III football this weekend, is, yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I was informed of that this morning, and I was like, well, now I want to watch. So, so I was like, man,
watch a murder, maybe. I don't know about that.
Have left at this point. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm completely out of shape, but there's got to be somebody that's looking for out of shape 41-year-olds. So, but anyway, the the thing that this also does, Cam, as I mentioned, was like kind of this idea of this ATO, and there's still not been a lot of clarity on, like, let's say, let's just, the hypothetical that has been thrown out repeatedly is the Michael Misa hypothetical of saying, take an ATO, go with San Jose. Maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe you can go play for somebody else, go take the ATO, then not sign the full contract, go to college if you're not going to make the Sharks out of camp.
Head to Bemidji.
Go to Bemidji. They are going to help you get through.
Why not?
But
why not give it a whirl?
And by the way, like, Bemidji has been extremely aggressive on the CHL path and bringing in guys from U Sports as well. Vincent LaBelle is coming from U Sports. They had Max Hildebrand, who was the WHL goalie of the year, is in their group. So they were very, very aggressive and have one of the craziest recruiting classes in there. A number of players from the QMJHL. They often have had a lot of Europeans at that school. So there's a lot of really intriguing people that are going to be playing hockey at Bemidji State this year. And, but talking to a lot of the people that do the college hockey coverage, and like, they just are like, we have no idea what eligibility even is anymore. And maybe that's the way of the world. Maybe that's the future. Maybe that's how it's going to be. But I agree with you. Regardless of what you think of it or how it is, I do think that we are about to enter probably one of the most talented collections of players we've ever had in Division I men's college hockey. And who knows where this goes from here. I'm really excited to see and to your point too about players getting more opportunities. This does extend that opportunity for them in a much more realistic way to gain a free agent contract and maybe still realize that NHL dream. So this is,
right.
I think in the end, what I've always said is that these rules, while they don't necessarily benefit everybody, they benefit a good portion of the players in a very real way. And I think that's a net positive in the end.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. Well, that was crazy. Again, go read that story by Jared Roberto as well, which is at the Bemidji Pioneer, and just thank you for local journalism as well for bringing that to our attention. All right, Cam, it's time to switch gears. It's time to have a little fun. It's time to break up the monotony. It's time to make each other feel either great or terrible about our hockey knowledge. It is time for the Called Up Challenge. And folks, we're going to switch this up soon, but we're going to continue with the format that we've been doing. We're going to do a series of challenges with each other, testing our hockey knowledge, testing some of our recall and other things of that nature in order for us to get to these answers. But we hope that you'll play along with at home. I've heard from people through DMs and text messages that they were screaming at me again this past week about who the player was that we gotten, and also apparently my complete bewilderment that the player was a Czech. He's a Czech.
Yeah.
He's a Czech.
He's a Czech.
He's a Czech. So anyway, we move on. So Cam, I'm going to let you. I'm going to lead off. I'm going to ask you. So we're going to give 3 context clues. We'll give additional clues if they are necessary. We'll get to the correct answer. But this one, we'll see. This is in honor of the OHL coming on to Flo. So I'm giving you I'm giving you a free context clue immediately.
Okay.
All right. First clue. This player was drafted in 2015.
Good draft.
2015. Yeah. Really good draft. Really good draft.
Decent.
This player had 518 NHL games played so far in his career, 384 points. So 518, 384. All
Solid.
right. And this is the one where I'm pretty sure it's going to give it away, but it may not, because it can trip people up if they don't remember. And I understand that. This player led the Ontario Hockey League in scoring in his draft season. 2015, 518 NHL games played.
Dylan Strome.
Dylan Strome is 100% correct. He didn't need much of anything. That's the one where it can trip you up if you're not careful.
Thinking
because Connor
McDavid,
McDavid did not, in
thinking
fact,
Marner.
Yep. That was, I mean, think about that, though. Think about that draft year where you've got Dylan Strome leading the OHL, you've got Mitch Marner, and you've got Connor McDavid all in the league at that time. Like,
Nasty.
unbelievable. And, like, that's the thing that gets me super excited about, you know, the OHL coming here is, like, when does that happen in? You know, maybe we'll never see that quite like that again. But the fact that you've got guys like Belchetz and Rubrek and Mabuy and all these other players that are
not touching it,
that are coming into it, it's really exciting to see. So, all right, so that was. I feel like that difficulty level was low, which now gives me great trepidation for where we go.
Yes,
next
you should.
For me,
you should be concerned.
Yes,
I would like to say the reason I knew that so quickly was in my fantasy league. In 2015, I held the 3rd overall pick, and everybody knew that it was going to go Davo, and then Eichel 1-2, and I was trying to trade the pick. I think I had 3 and 4. That's right. I had 3 and 4, and I was trying to trade it, and I was trying to trade 3 and convince the guy to take Dylan Strome because I wanted Mitch Marner. And I was like, yeah, I'll give you this pick. You can take Dylan Strome. He just led the league in scoring. He's going to be a superstar. And in the back of my head, I'm like, don't take Marner. Don't take Marner. I want Mitch. Okay. So that's how I knew so quickly. All right, I got like one for you too. It's not as easy. Sorry.
Okay, this is great.
But I'll give you this hint later, maybe. Okay, 2009 draft. I'm going to give you 64th overall. I'm going to give you that too. 2009 64th overall. Okay.
Okay.
At one point in the last 5 years, he led all defensemen in scoring in the NHL, okay, in a single season. He has played for 3 Canadian teams.
3 Canadian
draft,
teams.
Outside of the first, obviously, 64th overall. Okay. Played for 3 Canadian teams, and one season in the last 5, he led all D-men in points.
One season in the last 5 led all D-men in points. So yeah, so now you got to think about who have been the defensemen that have led in points, and I am, in the last 5 years. Okay, for the interest of our audience and me, not just standing here thinking about it, because I feel like I'm close. Could I get one more hint, please?
Kelowna Rockets alumni.
Kelowna Rockets alumni has played
one of the great jerseys of all time too.
Yeah, really. Yes.
Pogo.
Yes. Why is this escaping me at this moment of great need? Led the NHL in points and scoring, or defenseman. Played for 3 Canadian teams. 3 Canadian teams.
Yes.
Ooh, wow, man. I know there are people screaming at their screens and their radios. I think I need one more hint, and I feel like this should not be this hard.
He led all D in scoring in the COVID shortened season. So that's okay.
Okay. So
it's helping you out a little bit there.
Yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm. I tried to scrub those years from my memory.
Right.
Which is the hard part of that. So that explains why it's not coming to me as easily as I would hope. So Kelowna Rockets.
So he doesn't have like an 80-point season under his belt.
What's that?
I said that's why he doesn't have like an 80-point season under his belt, but he led it that year because it was only 56 games.
Yeah, but the 3 Canadian teams, the Kelowna Rockets, like I feel like that should be obvious to me. And it is not, but I'm thinking about it a little bit more here.
I'll give you more.
COVID short season. Okay, let's go. Let's go. I'm in
drafted by the Avalanche. Okay, drafted by the Avalanche.
It's Tyson Barrie.
It's Tyson Barrie, Mr. Retiree. He's in the news recently. Wrapped him up, hung him up. Tyson Barrie.
See, there you go. If this is how much COVID is wiped from my memory. I had zero recollection of Tyson Barrie leading the NHL's defenseman in scoring. But yeah, but congratulations to him on retirement.
Who did he play for that season?
What about the thing about? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just asking you. Do you remember who he played for that year that he led him in points? That led the league. First year in Edmonton, getting to play with Davo on the top power play.
There you go.
All of a sudden,
so that makes a lot of
blammo.
sense. And
Yeah.
and the thing that I'll say, like Tyson Berry, like, is there anybody who is more universally known as like everyone's favorite teammate? Like seriously, like that's something that you hear all the time is like, this is guy who's like one of the best teammates I've ever had. You just hear that all the time about him. You don't hear that about everybody, but that seems to be part
No.
of his narrative.
You know who another guy I get that a lot of it is Jordy Ben. Jamie's brother
Oh,
Jordy,
really?
who I've hung around and
Okay.
is an absolute beauty. But yeah,
I'm
everybody loved
sure.
Jordy Ben too. Yeah. Couple Victoria boys, right? There you go. 2 Victoria boys there. Jordy and Tyson.
There you go.
They come back
So
to the island all the
so
time.
Tyson, yeah. So all of you that are way smarter than me and have better recall than me, this has also been like, this used to be my bread and butter, Cam. I thought when we started this game, I'd be like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. This is going to be so easy. You start losing that recall really fast. So I think next week we're going to have to do something easier. So for my pudding brain, because that's all that's in there right now, apparently. So, but we've got a lot of things. We're going to try a bunch of different things with the called up challenge because we really enjoy doing it, and we hope that you guys enjoy taking part in it and yelling at us through the screen. But yes, let's keep our segment train rolling here, Cam. With our Beyond Belief segment, where each of us will read a statement to the other, and we will decide whether it is believable or beyond belief. And this is going to start us off. All right, in our Beyond Belief segment, I will give you this statement, and this kind of goes with our conversation from earlier. Ivan Demidov will win the Calder Trophy this year.
Believable. It's happening. I'm riding it. I'm riding the Ivan Demidov train. I'm on it. I've been passing out like, comfy pillows. We're riding the train together. We got blankets. It's a whole group effort. Maybe we've got the snack cart coming by, getting some chocolate frogs or something. Like, where I am on that train. I am on the Ivan Demidov train.
I love it. And you know what? Like, is he the betting favorite right now? He has to be, right?
He must be.
Like,
right?
I haven't looked at the books. I don't, I don't bet on the awards and different things because I vote and stuff, and so that would be like so illegal and super unethical.
Yeah, super unethical.
But I do look at the lines sometimes just to kind of see what Vegas is thinking about this, and to me, like with that runway that he's had of playing in the NHL last season, playing in some playoff games, to me that's really what sets him up. In the same way, like you think about Quinn Hughes' rookie year, how much did that 7-game stint at the end of the previous season help him? Cale Makar playing in the playoffs, and that little taste, I think, really does give those guys a leg up. So I would not be surprised at all. Definitely believable.
And he
all
is
right,
the
to you, my friend.
Just looked it up. He
okay, good. Yeah. See, I had a computer, but I was also talking, and I'm like, I don't know if I should look at this while I'm trying to make words.
I got you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So everybody's favorite thing, and it's super important. I don't want to just, get that out there right away. Rookie tournaments. They are an excellent barometer about where a prospect is going to be in the coming season. Rookie tournaments, placing all your stock into them beyond belief.
So it is beyond belief.
Yes.
So beyond belief. I don't even think they're a good barometer. I don't even think they're particularly useful anymore. I've gone many times. I have watched many a thing, and I have yet to learn one thing from any of them. If you watch a player that is going into the those rookie tournaments, and it's maybe he's a top draft pick, you know who the best players are in those typically? The guys that spent all year in the AHL. The guys that are 25 years old. Last year at one of these things, Keith Kincaid played in one of these last year because the Islanders like, hey, I don't know, we're gonna have you play here. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen at one of these. Is Keith Kincaid on, and then ended up spending most last season in the ECHL, and he's a super fun player too. But the thing about these rookie tournaments is you can put so much stock into like just having the chance to see these guys. It's a great experience for them to kind of be within that team environment. They get to wear the jerseys. They get to be around the guys that are going to be their prospects. That's where the value is. The value is not in what happens on the ice. I have not seen one where a guy would look like he was completely out of place and will never going to have a chance to make it. All of these players are very good. They're not separated by a whole lot of things. Some of the prospects might do a cool thing here or there, but the competitiveness of these has continually dropped, I feel, even though there is still, like, you'll see fights, you'll see guys going after it. But I think that they're honestly a little more trouble than they're worth. More and more teams are taking their players off the ice for development camps in the earlier in the summer too. I think the thing is that so much is asked of players in a given year. These are really, it's hard to say, but I will tell you what, like, I have been to them. They are fun to watch. It is watching that kind of hockey in September, often in like smaller arenas, a little more intimate setting. It's cool. It's really cool. Like the things that they've done in Penticton, the things that they've done
Penticton's a great spot.
Yeah, exactly. Like these are, so that's where it is. But if in terms of being a barometer of like, oh, this guy's coming in, he's going to be flying in camp. There has not been one time where I've learned anything from them. It's simply fun to watch, and that is okay. It doesn't have to mean as much as you want it to.
It's like scouting the beauty league. Hey,
a little bit.
You see that goal Sam Rinzel scored the other day? Here we go.
Yeah. Sam Rinzel is now a John Scott champion. John Scott Cup was awarded in the Beauty League. If you didn't know, we actually had it on Flow a couple of years ago. I went out there. It was actually, that was super fun to go watch players. There were so many NHL guys out there. But Sam Rinzel, now a John Scott Cup champion. And John Scott Cup, just in case you were wondering, is a keg. So that is what you win if you win the Beauty League. All right, buddy. This one was a listener submitted. And so, and this got me thinking a little bit, because I'm thinking about there's been a lot of this kind of rush of non 6'2" goalies. Like basically the cutoff that I've heard from people is like 6'2". If you're shorter than 6'2", the uphill battle is very uphill. It's very steep. Does the recent examples of undersized goalies having success and getting drafted a little bit higher as well change the dynamic for teams in terms of scouting undersized goaltenders?
I mean, you look at what Dustin Wolf just did, right? I know Devin Levi had an incredible success in the NCAA. He's still working his way up to the league. Ivan Kovic just had great international experience. Mikey DiPietro, was he goalie of the year in the AHL? Was he? Was Mikey?
Yeah, Mikey DiPietro. Yeah, goalie of the year.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the Canucks tried to ruin his development too. You would think that might start to bleed into how teams are drafting, but I'm going to say it's beyond belief. I'm going to say that it's going to take a lot more than that to get them to draft guys that are 6 foot, 5'11", even the 6'1" guys over these 6'5" Russians or whatever, Western Canadian kids that maybe don't have the same explosiveness, don't have the same polished movements, but they're big. They can just by sheer volume of space cover more net. I think it's going to take a long time and a lot of good young or small goaltenders to get the NHL to start drafting differently.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, I think that you need to try to judge goalies, just on the merit of their abilities, right? Like, I mean, I think that they're, and yes, the laws of geometry and everything else in terms of angles and whatever, what have you, it can be, there are saves that bigger goalies can make with less effort than the smaller ones. But like, you look at guys like, Carter George had a tremendous run last year and got into the AHL. He's, listed at 6'1", not a guy that you say like, oh, he's not, that's, Jonathan Quick came in at 6'1", had a really phenomenal career, still going at it. Like all these different things. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that the fact of the matter is when you're drafting players, it's a probability. You're going off of probabilities, and the probabilities for the smaller goalies is simply not as strong as the ones for the bigger goalies. So I get that a lot.
Okay. Last one. Hudson Thornton just opened the door for European pros to try and play college hockey. Like we said, like we want, like we're hoping for.
I think it's possible. And I think if you are leagues like the ECHL and now also the Allsvenskan, the Czech league, these kind of leagues, you do have to be a little bit on notice here, because I do think that players are going to, this is going to allow players to kind of have the best of both worlds. It's going to allow them to sample those things. So yes, this is believable to me that this could open the door. I think it's going to, the reason that it's believable is because I think colleges are now going to see this as a green light. And while I don't think they're going to invest as much in scouting those leagues, when those opportunities present themselves, they are going to explore them to their fullest extent, because quite frankly, there is nothing that you can really like replicating the grind of the college hockey game, just a single game where it is kind of that hybrid between junior and pro. It's not the same, but now you're having a guy who's maybe taking a step back from it as opposed to a step into it. That's where I think that these teams are going to be super interested in having these players. So yes, if it could do that, yes, it may force more players into a delayed, they may not play college hockey until they're 20. Like college hockey is going to get older. It was already getting older. It is only going to get older still. And that could still be great news for our junior hockey leagues across North America as well, because those players will stay in those leagues a little bit longer in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases. The top players will still matriculate pretty quickly. But I think a lot of these guys, you're going to have more players that are kind of in your mid-range that are going to stay longer. And then in the college level, you're going to have more players that have that extended opportunity to maybe live out their NHL dream. So I'm really, really fascinated to see where things go from here. So I think I can't wait to see, but I will say, Cam, I have no idea where this is going. Like you said earlier, we have no clue where this ends, what the stop is. Will we see, because I mean, U Sports has had guys that, maybe even had like their little 9-game stint in the NHL go to U Sports, so it's happened. It's not out of the question. Let's see if the NCAA follows suit there.
No, I'm with you. It's going to be cool to watch.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. So we move now to our final segment, and it's one that we enjoy. And this also is inspired by the Elite Prospects Top 100 Affiliate Rankings. I want you guys to go ahead and go check that out and see the work there. But let's talk about it. All right. I've already said my piece about, kind of the structure of how the D is. And, Matthew Schaefer was the number 1 defenseman. Zane Parekh was the number 2 defenseman on that list. So let's go this way. I'm not going to include Schaefer because I think that that's a different discussion. But if you're building an NHL team right now, which defenseman are you choosing to build around? Is it Zane Parekh, or is it the guy that went number 2, Artem Levshinov, in the same draft year? What do we got?
I like that you didn't make me pick between Zane and Zeev.
I had a feeling that this would be a more difficult decision for you. For you if it was Zane and Zeev.
It would have been, because I love me some Zeev Buium.
Yeah.
So this is tricky because, Artie's hilarious, number 1, but a really good player, but he's not, right? Great kid, but he's not massive. What is he? 6'2", right? He has some decent offense. He has some good defense. Like he's a really projectable player in an all around mold, where Zane is, 6 foot. So he's not undersized, but he's maybe a touch undersized, but I'm going Zane. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm picking the kid that I can one day project to be like, this guy could rattle off 70 plus point seasons in the right spot, right? Like he could be a Chris Letang like player for you for a number of years. Someone that if you can surround him with enough talent too, he could put up monster point totals. And I think that he has enough snarl in his game that and enough jam and enough pushback that he's going to be able to develop his defensive game enough to really pop and then earn the ice time and the trust of his coaches. So I'm going Zane, and I'll just set the table for you to pick Artie.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other reason that I made it this decision too, because I figured we would end up on opposite sides of the coin here, and that's part of the idea. And really, with Artie, so it's interesting. So you mentioned Chris Letang, which I think is obviously multiple time Stanley Cup winner. Were the Penguins that much of a contender at his peak, because I think we would think about like and players like that, and they're gonna make these arguments about some of the best defensemen in the game too. You know, like that. I'm sure that argument is going to happen about Quinn Hughes, even though I think a lot of us believe that he is one of the very best defensemen in the NHL, one of the most talented players in the league,
Absolutely.
easily.
Number
But the
two.
question
Yeah.
always comes along is like, is that the kind of player that you can build a team around? And I think Quinn in particular is absolutely yes. I'm less convinced of that of Zane. Obviously, he's got a lot more to prove. You know, I think, and that's the thing is that the style of defenseman is really where this comes down to. I do think that, you know, Artie he still has to work on something. There are defensive lapses that cannot happen at the pro level that we have seen at the AHL level last year. But I think there's a lot of things about his game that are understated and that actually I think will work long term. If you're giving me between the two players, I think that the guy that gives me a little bit more of everything is Levshinov, and the guy that gives me a lot of one thing and a little bit less of what I might want is Perek. I think it's going to be really, really fascinating to watch the entire class of that draft, because of the order that it went. Like, you know, Zeev going later than we all thought he would, Levshinov going second, the question of who's going Dickinson, Perek, like that is going to be one of the most fascinating defense classes to watch. Oh, I can't wait to see it. But I think, you know, for me, and you know, the difference is too, is we're judging guys that played in very disparate paths too to get to where they are, where you've got Levshinov, who played almost all of last season in the AHL, and unfortunately started the season slow because he was injured for a chunk of the beginning of the season and missed a lot of training camp. And then you've got Perek, who, you know, dominated the OHL, and just really, you know, what we need to see more of that translation to the pros. So I think that the offensive upside for Perek, far better. The overall game impact that I feel like Levshinov can make from both a more of a two-way. I do think the offense is not going to be as pronounced, but I do think it's going to be there. Those are the players I think. But I cannot, like I said, I cannot wait to watch this draft class kind of, you know, grow and go forward. I'm really excited to see what Sam Dickinson does this year. Does he make the Sharks? I mean, and if he doesn't, what the heck do you do? You know, like he's got to, right? So I mean, there's really no, you know, you've got to kind of have him there. So there's a lot of these things. And so, and is the NHL going to be the best spot for Sam to continue to build? You mentioned it, and I agree completely. He took a step this year. Can he continue taking that step at the NHL level where, you know, it's kind of sink or swim a lot more? But that was a fun one though, because I think that I knew where you were going. I knew where I was going, but I also think that there's probably the answer, as often is the case, is probably somewhere in between. You know, it's like,
it's always gray.
Maybe they're both going to be fine. Maybe neither of them are great to build around. Maybe both of them are amazing to build around. That's kind of the nature of this thing, but it's fun. Well, we've spent much of this podcast plugging elite prospects, as we should, because obviously this is one half of our deal, but tell us what is coming up next on Elite Prospects. What do you got cooking for us, Cam?
We got our organizational prospects rankings cruising right now. And I don't know if anybody's had a chance to see them. You know, we've rattled off the first few here. They're so in-depth. They're so quality. Like if you were actually looking for like deep knowledge on players, not like a couple sentences, like you better come to EP, because we are running the gamut. We're doing a little different this year too. We used to just like assign a team to a scout, and then they'd have to watch 20 guys and write reports and blurbs on all those guys. Now we're doing it by region. I just like put my name next to a whole bunch of guys that I've seen a bunch, and now I'm writing blurbs on them. I'm writing leads for different teams. It's great. I love this new system. So those are rolling out daily. You know, I've got 6 players that could challenge Gavin McKenna for first overall. That piece is ready. It's waiting for somebody to click publish on. So that'll be out in a hot minute here too. It's content season, right? Everybody's back off vacation. Everybody's rolling. So we'll be churning out a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah. Always great to check that out, and certainly make sure you're going to eliteprospects.com and checking out EP across their social media platforms as well. And on Flow, obviously, we're so excited. OHL, QMJHL, first season, we've had both of them on here. Going to be doing a lot of content around that. We're adding some more people to our group to help us cover these leagues. So that's really exciting as well. You're going to get some really authentic coverage. It's almost preview season. So you're going to get previews about the USHL, the QMJHL, the OHL, and so much more. There's also going to be, a lot of junior hockey that is going to be live on FloHockey, including the OJHL, which is just single-digit days away from starting their season in their regular season. So there is so much there. Do want to give a quick plug, since we do have all of this hockey, and it is now the largest platform of hockey streaming anywhere, more than 20,000 games this year. Get yourself an annual subscription to FloHockey. It's a one-time fee. You get that. You get the whole year. You get more hockey than you know what to do with, and it's huge savings versus the monthly plan. So highly, highly recommend. If you think you're going to watch 20 to 30 games this year, even then, it's still worth it. It's going to be less for you to go ahead and go and get that annual subscription. It'll be well worth your while. We are pumped to be doing the show, to be doing more hockey, and to be doing a lot of fun things over at Flo. So make sure you get that annual subscription. And while you're at it, subscribe to this podcast on your app of choice. Watch us on YouTube. Watch us on the Flo Sports app. Watch us wherever you choose to watch your videos, often your phone, often on a train or a bus or somewhere else, or just listen to us, whatever you do. And also kind rating, kind review. Cam, we're so close. We're so close to this season. It's almost here, buddy. I cannot wait. Let's get it started so we can stop talking in the hypothetical and start talking about what's actually happening out there. But yes, that'll do it for this week's episode of Called Up the Prospects podcast. For my pal Cam Robinson, I'm Chris Peters. We'll see you next time.